Hello! For this episode, we are now going to discuss about the accounting cycle. And for our objectives, first, to identify the steps of the accounting cycle. Second, to explain and define each step of the accounting cycle. And third, to explain how business transactions are recorded and summarized to different accounting documents. But before anything else, let me first introduce myself. Hi! I am Lillian Margaret Alvinas, at sa mga nakakabata sa akin, you can call me Ate Meg. I am a third-year college student taking Bachelor of Science in Accounting Information System. So ayun, ano nga ba ang accounting cycle? Accounting cycle is a series of steps or a process of identifying, analyzing, and summarizing the accounting events of the business. Basically, ito yung pagkakasunod-sunod kung paano ang process ng bookkeeping or ng accounting. So let me show you what an accounting cycle looks like. So I have here 9 steps in the accounting cycle: transaction, journalizing, posting, unadjusted trial balance, adjustments, adjusted trial balance, financial statements, closing entries, and post-closing trial balance. This accounting cycle is divided into 2 parts. The first part is the recording phase, which is the transaction, journalizing, and posting. On the other hand, we have the summarizing phase that includes unadjusted trial balance to post-closing trial balance. Actually, in between ng step ng adjustments, adjusted trial balance, and financial statements, meron pa tayong isang document na pwede nating gawin which is called worksheet. I'll elaborate more on that after ko i-discuss mamaya yung adjusted trial balance. So ayun, let's proceed to the first step, which is the transactions. An accounting cycle always starts by identifying the financial transactions of a business. When we say financial transactions, may monetary value palagi. And take note, dapat ang transaction na kasama ay nangyari sa business, hindi nangyari sa may-ari ng business. Transactions include sales, purchases, payments, receipts, and a lot more. Let me give you some transaction examples. Identify natin alin ang considered as financial transactions. I have prepared 8 transactions of a business. A simple background ng business. Ang ginawa kong example na business ay salon na more on manicure and pedicure. Ang pangalan ng may-ari ay Tita. Ayun, let's see kung alin nga ba sa mga naging transaction ni Tita ang dapat nating isama sa bookkeeping. After I read every transaction, you can pause the video para i-analyze nyo. Ito ba ay financial transaction na dapat nating isama sa bookkeeping or hindi? So ayun, let's identify if dapat siya kasama or hindi. Let's start. On April 1, Tita invested 100,000 pesos to start her business. She also bought furnitures and fixtures for her business with a total amount of 50,000 pesos. Is this considered as financial transaction? Yes or no? Yes, dahil merong 100,000 pesos na ipinasok si Tita sa kanyang business at furnitures and fixtures na worth 50,000 pesos. And from that, that's already a financial transaction. Next, on April 2, she posted a picture of her parlor at Facebook, and a lot of her friends commented on the post to congratulate her. Is this a financial transaction? No, it's not. Simply because walang perang involved sa naging transaction or interaction niya with her friends. Okay, now, let's proceed on our third transaction. On April 5, there were 12 customers who came for a manicure service that is 400 pesos each service. All customers paid in cash. Is this a financial transaction? Yes, dahil nagbayad lahat ng customers for the service. On the same day, nagkaroon ng transaction or interaction si Tita with her customers. Before leaving, her customers left a comment that Tita still lacks many supplies but the service is very good. Is this a financial transaction? Again, no, it's not. Dahil walang perang involved sa naging transaction or interaction ni Tita with her customers. Let's move on to the next transaction. On April 6, Tita bought all the supplies that the customers wanted amounting to 5,000 pesos, but she will be paying this next month. Is this a financial transaction that we should include in our accounting period for the month of April? Yes, because nakuha na ni Tita yung supplies, gagamitin niya na for the whole accounting period. Kaya, yes, we should include this sa ating bookkeeping or accounting. Let's have this next transaction. On April 15, customers came for service and Tita collected cash amounting to 6,000 pesos. Is this a financial transaction? Yes, katulad lang nung naging huli nating transaction with the customers, nag-render ng service si business, kaya, yes, it is a financial transaction. Nagbayad ang customers with a total of 6,000 pesos. On April 20, it's Tita's birthday, so she posted again at Facebook that their store will be closed until April 24. Her friend then contacted her to go to her resort for Tita's short vacation for free. Should we include this in our bookkeeping? No, hindi natin siya dapat isama sa bookkeeping ng business, ng parlor ni Tita. Kasi yung transaction ng April 20 is her personal transaction, her personal interaction with her friend. Kaya, ang sabi natin nung una, ang dapat isinasama lang nating transaction ay yung involved ang business. Yung kung ano yung naging activity ng business and not activity ng owner. Let's proceed now on April 25. There were a lot of customers on this day, but Tita received cash of 1,200 pesos only, and the rest of 1,600 pesos will be collected on May 1. Is this a financial transaction na dapat natin isama sa accounting period natin? Yes. Dahil the service rendered of the business happened in the accounting period, in the month of April. So yes, it will be recorded under April. Okay, for the last transaction, on April 30, Tito, the owner of the building where the salon is, came to the business of Tita to ask for the payment of the rent. Tita paid 7,000 pesos for rent. Tita then also paid for the utilities with the amount of 500 pesos and the salaries of her employees for the total amount of 3,000 pesos. Is this a financial transaction? Yes, because Tita paid the expenses of the business. So that's it. As simple as that. Kailangan nyo lang i-analyze ang bawat transaction. Ito ba ay may monetary value? At ito ba ay activity ng business? So let's have sa isang slide kung ano lang yung mga financial transaction na pwede natin gamitin sa bookkeeping para magamit natin siya sa susunod na step ng accounting cycle, which is journalizing. Now, journalizing. It is the second step of accounting cycle. It means recording of transactions in the general journal. Take note that journalizing must be in chronological record of transactions. It is important to have date, debit account title and its amount, credit account title and its amount, and brief explanation of the transaction. The accounting record written in the journal is called journal entries. So, yung mga na-identify nating transactions sa first step ng accounting cycle, gamitin natin dito sa second step ng accounting cycle. Let's learn how to record the transactions. meron tayong ditong 5 columns sa general journal. Date, particulars. The date must be in chronological order like what I said kanina. Sa particulars, doon nakalagay ang account titles. Sa PR or post reference, doon natin ilalagay kapag na-post na natin, which is on the third step pa. And the last 2 columns ay yung debit at credit kung saan nakalagay yung amount ng mga account titles. So let's have yung first transaction natin, which is the investment of tita. So on April 1, we have cash kasi nag-invest si tita ng cash sa business which is 100,000 pesos. Debit siya kasi pasok siya sa business. And furnitures and fixtures with the amount of 50,000 pesos. So, syempre, dahil may debit tayo, kailangan din natin mag-credit na same amount nung total ng debit natin for this transaction. So, since investment siya, ang account title natin for that is the owner's name, capital. So, for this case, it's Tita Capital. With the amount of 150,000 pesos, dahil yun yung total amount ng investment niya sa business. The 100,000 pesos cash, and the 50,000 pesos worth of furniture and fixtures. After recording the account titles, kailangan natin maglagay ng brief explanation of the transaction. In this case, pwede natin ilagay to record the investment of tita. As simple as that. Now, let's proceed sa second financial transaction natin, which is yung 12 customers na dumating for a manicure service. So, on April 5, we have here cash na tanggap natin from the customers. Total of 4,800 dahil 400 pesos each customers. So, 12 times 400 pesos is 4,800. So, dahil may debit tayo, of course, kailangan din natin ng credit, which is service revenue, with the amount of 4,800. Dahil 4,800 worth of service yung ginawa ng business for the customers. After recording this transaction, kailangan ulit ng brief explanation. So for this transaction, we can have to record service rendered in cash. Now, after we record the first 2 transactions, let's go back muna sa list ng transactions. I will let you guys try muna kung paano mag-record ng iba pang transactions. Pause this video para matry nyo. After nyo gawin, continue with the video and ifa-flash ko yung mga sagot. Don't worry, if hindi pa kayo sigurado on how to record transactions, we have our next episode para turuan kayo ng journalizing. Now, for the third step, we have posting. Once the transactions are recorded, we now need to transfer the journal entries to the general ledger. This process is called posting. Kung sa journalizing kanina, important na chronological record, dito sa posting, kailangan organized by account. When posting, we need to make sure na iba-iba ang 3-column ledger table ng bawat account title. Per table, may pangalan ng account and its account number. Pero teka, saan natin makikita ang account number? That's when we use the chart of accounts. I haven't mentioned that kanina, pero I'll show you what it looks like bago tayo mag-proceed sa brief discussion ng posting. This is the chart of accounts. This document includes the account number and its respective account title. Simple trivia or idea, yung first number sa account number indicates kung ang account title ba ay asset, liability, equity, revenue, or expense. If 1, ibig sabihin asset siya. If 2, liability. 3 naman for equity, 4 for revenue, 5 for expenses. So in this document, makikita natin na we have 4 asset accounts, from cash to furnitures and fixtures, 1 liability, the accounts payable, 1 equity account, the capital account, 1 revenue account, the service revenue, and 4 expense accounts. Now let's go back sa posting. Since una ang cash sa chart of accounts natin, unahin natin siya sa ledger. Ang account number ng cash ay 101, and we need to put that sa upper right side of the document. Let's go back sa journal entries para ma-identify natin kung ano-ano nga ba yung mga transaction na ginamitan natin ng cash account. So, nung April 1 na nag-invest si tita, meron tayong debit na cash, which is 100,000. So, now the total balance of our cash account is 100,000. Next, on April 5, we received cash from service rendered with a total amount of 4,800. So the total balance now is 104,800 pesos. Next, on April 15, another cash received from the service rendered with a total amount of 6,000. So the total balance of cash account is 110,800 pesos. On April 25, naka-receive ulit tayo ng cash from the rendered service with a total amount of 1,200. So the total balance of the cash account right now is 112,000 pesos. And finally, on April 30, the business paid the expenses, which is rent, utilities, and salaries with a total amount of 10,500. So since naglabas tayo ng cash, credit balance siya, and we subtract that from the balance of the cash account. So now the total balance of cash account now is 101,500 pesos. Same as with the journalizing, I encourage you to pause the video and try nyo mag-posting ng other account titles. Use the journal entries and the chart of accounts. After a while, I will flash all the general ledger. Moving forward to the first trial balance of the accounting cycle, the unadjusted trial balance. After posting to ledger, total balances will be transferred to unadjusted trial balance to test the equality of the debits and the credits. The important thing in this step is to see if the debit and credit are still balanced, and they should be. If they are not balanced, there are errors that has been made for sure. With that, check how you encoded the amounts. Check yung mga digits, especially yung mga zero in thousands or even millions. Or balikan mo yung general journal and make sure every transaction are balanced in debit and credit. Also, check your general ledger and make sure you've encoded all the transactions in their respective account. Let's try to make the unadjusted trial balance of Tita's Salon. Sa paggawa ng unadjusted trial balance, ang pagkakasunod-sunod na account titles ay nakabase sa pagkakasunod-sunod nila sa chart of accounts. Kaya dito magsisimula muli tayo sa cash. As you can see in the ledger of cash, its total amount is 101,500 pesos with debit balance. Next is accounts receivable, another debit balance with 1,600 pesos. Then supplies with a total balance of 5,000 pesos as written in its ledger. Another debit balance is the furniture and fixtures with 50,000 pesos. Then a liability account, the accounts payable, with credit balance of 5,000 pesos. Next, Tita Capital with 150,000 pesos in credit. Followed by service revenue of 13,600 still in credit side. Next, Rent expense with 7,000 total balance on debit. Utilities expense, 500 pesos on debit. Salaries expense on debit with 3,000 pesos. And as you can see, the total of debit and credit is equal with 168,600 pesos. Meaning, you have a correct input with everything from step 1 until the unadjusted trial balance. Moving forward to adjustments. Adjustings are made at the end of every period. They are changes to the journal entries. Adjusting is important to make sure that the business activities are recorded accurately. This can also be done through worksheet. Now for our example. The adjustment is 500 pesos worth of supplies were used. So we'll be making a journal entry about it. So first, debit supplies expense with the amount of 500 pesos and then credit supplies with 500 pesos as well. The brief explanation for this is to record adjustment in supplies. After doing so, you also need to post this to general ledger. Make new entry to account name supplies with April 30 adjustment credit 500 pesos. And now the total balance is 4,500. We are now on the 6th step of the accounting cycle, the adjusted trial balance. This document is the updated version of the previously made unadjusted trial balance. After recording the adjustments, it is necessary to update your trial balance as well. Still, it must have equal debits and credits. From the previous example, supplies was 5,000 pesos. And after the adjustments, it is now 4,500. And then, we have additional account title, which is supplies expense, with a total of 500 pesos on debit side. If you can remember earlier, I mentioned about worksheet. Worksheet is an optional document in the accounting cycle. This document simplifies the process of creating financial statements for each accounting period. There are usually 5 columns of data, with each column subdivided into a debit and a credit column. First column includes unadjusted trial balance. Second column, adjusting entries. Third column, adjusted trial balance. Fourth column, income statement. And fifth column, balance sheet. Let's take a look at the first 3 columns of the worksheet with our salon business example. As you can see, we have unadjusted trial balance, then the adjustment entries, and then the adjusted trial balance. In the adjustment entries, we credit 500 in the supplies account and added supplies expense account with the debit of 500 pesos. After doing so, we combine unadjusted trial balance and adjustment entries to make adjusted trial balance. On our next slide, I'll show you a real-life example of worksheet. You can pause the video to see and analyze the document. Now, the financial statements. Financial statements summarize the accounting information of the business. This includes 3 main documents: income statement, balance sheet, and statement of cash flows. These documents are important because it is what the external parties, especially the investors, are looking regarding the financial position of the business. First, an income statement is a financial statement that shows how profitable your business is during an accounting period. Kumbaga, the income statement is made para makita natin kung may kita ba ang business or lugi siya for that specific accounting cycle. Dito natin makikita kung mas malaki ba ang kinita ng business or mas malaki ang naging gastos ng business. The ending or the total of the income statement should either be net income, if positive, and net loss if negative on total. The basic equation for the income statement is revenue less operating expenses. Next, we have balance sheet. This financial statement reports the company's assets, liabilities, and equities. In balance sheet, may separate tayong total for assets and then combination of liabilities and owner's equity. The total of assets should be balanced with the total of liabilities and owner's equity. As you can see in our example, they both have 157,600 pesos as their total. Finally, the statement of cash flows. The statement of cash flows is one of the financial statements that shows the standing or balance of the cash. Basically, dito makikita kung paano ginamit ang cash ng business. The cash flows are divided into three parts. 1. Operating activities. The revenue-generating activities. Nandito yung mga kinita at mga ginastos sa pagpapatakbo ng business. Second, we have the investing activities. Here, included yung mga long-term assets, for example, equipment. Although may furniture and fixtures tayo, hindi siya kasama dito dahil invested siya by the owner and hindi binili ng business kaya wala tayong inilabas na cash. Last activity is the financing activities. This includes loans and investments contributed by the capital or the equity. For example, kapag may pinasok na pera ang owner. Now let's move forward to the closing entries. Closing entries are also journal entries that is made to transfer all the temporary accounts to permanent accounts. Ito ay same procedure sa step 2 natin, pero this time, i-close na natin ang mga temporary accounts na ginamit natin for this period. Ano nga ba ang temporary accounts? They are accounts that accumulate transactions in a single period. All revenues, expenses, and withdrawals are considered temporary accounts. Ibig sabihin, yung mga kinita at expense ng business for this period para lang siya sa period na ito at hindi na dapat dinadala sa sunod na accounting period. Meanwhile, the permanent account stays and are carried on the next accounting period. All assets, liabilities, and equities except withdrawals are considered permanent or real accounts. Ano naman yung income summary? Income summary ay isang account title rin. Ito ang ginagamit natin sa closing entries to close all the temporary accounts. However, this account is also temporary, so we also need to close this to the capital account. Let us see our example. First, close all the revenue account. In our example, we have service revenue with a credit balance. So to close it, we need to debit it and pair it with income summary. Next, close all expense account. Since ang expense account natin ay debit balance, we need to credit them. Add their total and debit income summary. Last is to close the income summary. So the final balance of our income summary is 2,600 credit. To close it, we need to debit the income summary and transfer its account to Tita Capital. And to check if it's correct, the 2,600 is actually equal to our net income in our income statement. We are now down to our last step, which is the post-closing trial balance. This is just like the adjusted trial balance. The only difference is that this post-closing trial balance only includes real accounts. With our adjusting entries a while ago, all the expense and revenue account have zero balance now. So we will not include that. And then, we have to add 2,600 to our capital account. Make sure that your post-closing trial balance only includes assets to capital account. So that's it! After the post-closing trial balance, you're now done with one accounting period. To start with another accounting period, you'll have to start again from identifying the transactions.